They say memory is a soft thing, a pliable thing, the way river stones are worn smooth by time, the sharp edges dulled until you can no longer tell if they were ever truly dangerous at all. But some memories, the ones that live in the marrow, in the hidden, unspeakable places of the mind, are not softened by time but sharpened, honed by absence, by distance, by the careful, deliberate forgetting that is less like healing and more like slow, exquisite suffocation. And when I first saw the letter, that brittle slip of yellowed paper sealed with nothing but a smudge of rust-colored wax, I knew immediately, instinctively, that the memory I had spent a lifetime trying to drown had not drowned at all, it had waited. It had grown. The letter contained only 6 words, each one slanted, trembling as though written by a hand not quite human. It's awake. You must come home. The moment I read those words, something inside me, the part of the mind that exists before language, before reason, the part that recognizes predator before it sees it, shivered violently, and a cold so profound it felt almost wet settled deep into my chest, spreading outward with each panicked heartbeat as images I didn't want and didn't choose bloomed behind my eyes. A house not made of brick and wood but of teeth, of bones, of memory, standing not on earth but on something far older, something that pulsed and whispered beneath the skin of the world. I had left that house 23 years ago. I had left it burning. But some things do not burn. Some things wait. I didn't pack. I didn't call anyone. I didn't even lock the door behind me. The car moved as if on its own, the road stretching endlessly into night, the sky a low ceiling of bruised clouds that hung heavy with unshed rain, and though the radio was dead, though the wind outside was still, I could hear something. A distant, almost imperceptible voice murmuring beneath the roar of my own pulse, a voice that sounded, impossibly, like my own, whispering a single word over and over, home. 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 The house appeared in the headlights like something risen from a dream. Or a nightmare too ancient to name, its silhouette jagged and skeletal against the swollen belly of the sky, every window an unblinking eye, every rotted board a twisted rib bone half buried in the wet blackness of the hill that sloped up toward it like the spine of something long dead and restless. I killed the engine, but the silence that followed was not silence. It was alive, thick, pulsing, as if the air itself held breath, as if the darkness was swollen with anticipation. And for a long moment I sat, unmoving, as the wind stirred the branches overhead in slow, rhythmic sighs that almost sounded like words, though none I could name. The door was open. Not wide, not as though forced, but just slightly ajar, the way a mouth might be if the jaw were broken, the wood around it warped and bowed with damp, and despite every instinct screaming inside me, despite the long coil of remembered terror rising swift and choking in my throat, I stepped forward. Each footfall soft and deliberate, my breath already turning to steam in the cold, as if I were not walking under my own will but under its. The moment I crossed the threshold, the house breathed. It was subtle at first, a shift in the pressure, a soft moan in the beams overhead. But it was there, undeniable, and the air, thick with the damp rot of mildew, of something older and sweeter and profoundly wrong, pressed against my skin like the exhale of something vast and slumbering just beneath the floorboards. The wallpaper, once bright with florals, I thought dimly, hung in curling, peeling sheets, the floorboards swollen with moisture, the walls etched with dark stains that, on closer inspection, were not stains at all but carvings. Deep, frantic gouges that spiraled and twisted along every surface in mad, tangled patterns that made my vision blur if I looked too long, patterns that seemed to shift and pulse at the edges of sight. The stairs groaned beneath my weight, each step shivering, and as I ascended, the breathing grew louder, not with sound but with feeling, the sense of something vast and unspeakable pressing closer, closer, its attention dragging across my skin with the delicacy of spider silk. I reached the landing. The third door stood waiting. I don't know what made me reach for the knob, what thin thread of memory, what shred of forgotten command, but the moment my fingers brushed the cold metal, the air seemed to shudder, and somewhere deep within the walls I felt it, the slow, wet pulse of something awakening. The door creaked open on hinges rusted black with age, and the room beyond was both familiar and utterly alien. The same small bed, the same faded curtains, the same threadbare rug, except everything was wrong, tilted, as if the room itself had been stretched, twisted, bones bent until they screamed. The walls were alive. I saw it then, not as metaphor but as horrifying fact. The wallpaper breathing, shifting in slow, rhythmic contractions, the gouges in the plaster twitching softly like open wounds, and beneath it all, the faintest impression of eyes, hundreds, thousands of eyes, pressed against the skin of the house, straining outward. The words carved there, "Let me in," spiraled across every surface, endless, frantic, and the more I looked, the more I realized the letters were not carved but grown, the wood itself splitting, flowering into language, and the air. Sweet, thick, sickening, made the edges of my vision swim as the breathing grew louder, closer, until it filled the room, until it filled me. The bed creaked. Something moved beneath it. Something small. I wanted to run. I wanted to scream. But my body refused. I stood, trembling, tears spilling unchecked down my face as cold hands, tiny and skeletal, slipped from beneath the bed frame and touched my ankle, gently, lovingly. The house sighed. And somewhere deep within me, something ancient stirred in answer. When I opened my eyes, if I had ever truly closed them, I was somewhere else. Not the room. Not the house. I was beneath. The darkness was total, but I could feel it, walls slick with moisture, the soft twitch of flesh beneath fingertips, the air thick with the sour sweetness of rot and the copper sting of old blood, and all around me the sound, softer now, but endless. Of something breathing, vast and slow, as though I were not inside a house but inside the belly of some ancient god long since buried beneath the skin of the world. I crawled, half blind, limbs trembling, and with every movement I could feel them, hands brushing against me from the dark, fingertips tracing the shape of my face, the hollow of my throat, gentle as lovers, patient as worms, and the further I moved, the clearer the voices became. Whispers at first, but rising, swelling into a chorus of weeping, begging, voices that sounded not like strangers but like echoes of myself, split and refracted, repeating old fears, old nightmares, old names I barely remembered. The floor pulsed beneath me, wet and alive, and when I glanced down I saw not wood but tongue, teeth, the impression of something smiling, and in that instant I understood, I was not inside the house. I was inside what the house had become. A mouth. A throat. A tomb. And it was feeding. When I came back, when the darkness folded itself around me and exhaled me back into the twisted bones of the house, I found myself standing in the hall again, but everything had changed. The walls bulged and shivered with hidden movement, the portraits lining the corridor had bloomed into things not quite human, their faces stretched and eyeless, their mouths wide open in silent screams, and the air, thicker now, heavy with breath, with memory, dragged at my lungs like drowning. I stumbled, half crawling, as doors yawned open around me, each one revealing impossible rooms. A nursery filled with cradles that rocked themselves, a dining room where the table was set for dozens of guests, each place occupied by a headless figure, hands twitching in silent applause, and all the while the house watched, the walls shivering, the floors pulsing, and I knew, in that marrow-deep place where logic dies, that I was not walking through architecture but through thought, through hunger, through madness. At the far end of the corridor, it waited. A mirror, cracked and seeping something dark, and when I looked into it, I saw not my own reflection but the house itself, its bones, its veins, its endless, twisting halls, wearing my face. And it smiled. There was no exit. There never had been. The house, alive, awake, starving, had already swallowed me whole, not as flesh but as memory, as self, as every fractured thought I had ever buried, and as I ran, blind, bleeding, breathless. I felt the walls closing in, the doors multiplying, every path leading me back to the room, to the bed, to the soft hands waiting beneath the sheets. I screamed until my voice was raw, until my throat tore, but the house only laughed, a low, wet, monstrous sound that filled every crack, every shadow, and as I collapsed, sobbing, I saw them, the others. Hundreds. Thousands. Faces pressed into the walls, eyes wide and shining, mouths moving in endless whispering prayer. Stay. 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 And I understood, at last, the house does not haunt. The house consumes. And now that it has me, I will never leave. I will never wake. I will never stop.